What's up, martial arts fanatics? Welcome back. As always, I'm Coach Greg, and today we're doing another Q&A. Today's question is a great one, but before we get started, I want to let you know, make sure you don't forget to go check out the Nemean fight system. It's available on Dynamic Striking and on Amazon, so please go do that. That being said, let's get to our question of the day. Coach, how come people don't deliberately target the arms with kicking? It seems like it's a very damaging thing. It would be very helpful. Why don't we see this more? First of all, I absolutely agree with you. It is a tremendous technique. There's a couple things I like to do that are especially helpful if you want to hurt their arms. And, you know, it's like breaking down that front leg with the calf kick. If you can chop away at their arms, it limits their willingness to open up on techniques. And, man, you can start really kind of like putting damage on them. So it makes it hard to lift their arms, hard to keep their guard up. And one of the things we talked about yesterday when we were talking about how to fight somebody who is a tall fighter, somebody who fights from an outside distance, is I call it the tree and root principle, the branch and root principle, where somebody who's hard to access their torso, you chop away at branches, right? You attack the leg and the front arm, and what ends up happening is it constricts them. There's a couple different ways that I like to attack. One of the things that I like to do is I like to do axe kicks on that front tricep. Axe kick to the head is not a very useful technique in my opinion. It is vastly overrated. People talk about Andy Hug. Well, Andy Hug could also do a 300-pound squat and a vertical splits. Most people can't do that. Most of the time what happens is you have about this much downwards force coming at you. You have to have a combination of great weight and great force, and most of the time to the head it's not very effective. But where an axe kick has tremendous damage is this range right here. And so that front bicep, very damaging. You can really drop somebody's arm with that. And I know that because I was playing around with sparring one time, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do it like half power. And I did it to my buddy Alex, and he couldn't lift his arm for like 5 minutes. He had this huge bruise the next day. That's a very damaging technique. I mean, he literally just, like that arm, like he just couldn't lift it. Like when you land right on that bicep, tricep, oh, you can really hurt somebody. Other techniques that I like to do is attacking with these hard outside and middle blocks. I used to know a guy, Kevin Slodek, amazing Taekwondo instructor, that when he sparred, he would just come up and start rapping on those forearms to open you up. And not even necessarily as block, like he would just come in and attack your guard with it. And it's a great technique to really do that forearm right to their arm. It's very painful to them. It hurts them a lot more than it hurts you. It's kind of like checking kicks, right? Other techniques that I like to use, we talked about in that video yesterday, when they had the long guard, doing front kicks up to that tricep, also a very effective technique. And then of course you have things like side kicking to the arms. When you have something like this, like tight guard here, you can do a lot of side kicks to it and start penetrating with that heel right into it. That type of stuff is really potent. It's very useful. So your question is, why don't we see this? Good question. I think it has to do a lot with how we spar. When we spar, we tend to be hyper-focused on hitting a couple targets. And for the most part, they're your more conservative targets, and they're the things you're more likely to spend your time on. And I will argue that from a high percentile principle, you do want to spend your time doing things, being able to access the body, access the head, getting good leg kicks off. Like that's where you should be spending most of your time. But because we spend a lot of time sparring and working on these things, the attacking the arms with kicks often is left out of that. Because when we're sparring our buddies and I'm kicking his arm, it doesn't feel like I'm winning. And I don't want to actually damage him, so I don't want to put real force onto it. So sometimes certain techniques when we spar don't feel as effective. It's kind of the same thing like when I get guys who want to put a lot of pressure on me to take me down and stuff like that. Sometimes what happens is like I'll use front kicks in the midsection to stuff them. And I want to be nice to my buddy because I'm not trying to hurt him. So I'm like tagging him, right? And he'll press through that. So in the moment, it's like, man, that doesn't really feel like it works. I have to remind myself the reason it doesn't work is because when I'm stuffing him, I'm not trying to hurt him, right? If I'm delivering force into it, it's a very different situation. And instead of getting a brief stop, I'll get a very deliberate stop on his movement. Whereas right now it's like, okay, tagging, I have to move, right? But that also develops other good habits. So in attacking the arms, when we're sparring, yeah, I could drop an axe kick on my buddy's arm, but it would hurt him, and I don't want to do that. a lot of the other stuff doesn't really feel like it's all that successful. So if I'm constantly kicking at somebody's arm, it feels like we're not winning, and so we don't develop those techniques. I think that's the main reason. It's something that you only kind of directly apply mostly when you're actually fighting. Same thing like kicking at the tricep. Somebody's got their arm up. Like, I wouldn't do that to a buddy. You know what I mean? Because you could legit hurt him and make him not be able to train for a while. And kicking roundhouse kicks to the arm and stuff like that doesn't feel like you're being damaging. So I think a lot of it has to do with our mentality when we spar and being able to disconnect sparring from fighting. So I would strongly encourage, somebody doing MMA who has an actual fight. There are circumstances where, figure out different ways that you could attack the arm, and then you could start damaging their guard in a way that makes it very hard for them to keep their hands up. And that's going to present the openings for the headshots or the body shots that you're looking for. Okay. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you share with your friends.